Today I want to talk about something most Western analysts are getting backwards, structurally backwards, because over the last several months, something has been quietly happening in the Pacific that most people are ignoring or misreading. China has not invaded Taiwan, and everyone wants to know why. The economy is slowing, the supposed window is closing, the military is ready. What is Beijing waiting for? The usual answer is deterrence. Carrier groups, AUKUS, arms sales, security commitments. The idea that China looked at the military math and blinked. That is not what is actually happening. And once you see the real story, the Taiwan situation starts to look very different. The most revealing thing about China's restraint is not what is stopping it militarily. It is what China is already getting without firing a single shot. Let me work through this carefully, because each piece depends on the last. The actual cost of a Taiwan war. China runs the largest export economy in history. Its growth, its employment, its political legitimacy. All of it depends on global trade. A war over Taiwan does not just risk military defeat. It risks something the Chinese Communist Party fears far more: permanent economic decoupling from the West, triggered immediately, with no path back. Not in a decade, maybe not in two. The moment a Chinese missile hits Taiwanese soil, the semiconductor supply chain collapses. Every major Western government suddenly has a domestic mandate to decouple from China, not gradually but fast. That is a wound China cannot heal on any comfortable timeline. So the question is not whether China wants Taiwan. Obviously it does. The question is whether it wants Taiwan more than it wants continued access to Western markets, Western technology, and the global financial system. That is a much harder calculation than the military one. What ambiguity is actually worth? Here is what almost never gets discussed honestly. As long as the Taiwan question is unresolved, China has leverage. Over Taiwan, obviously, but also over the United States, Japan, and every country in the region that has to factor potential war into every foreign policy decision it makes. That leverage is real. It keeps neighbors deferential. It keeps America spending political capital on deterrence rather than on other problems. And China gets all of it for free. No sanctions, no casualties, no economic blowback. Game theorists call this a dominant strategy. You collect the benefits of the threat without paying the cost of the action. The moment China actually invades, it trades all that leverage for a war it might win militarily and almost certainly loses economically. Rational actors do not make that trade when the current situation is already this favourable. What this means for Taiwan here is the uncomfortable part. Taiwan's security does not rest on American commitment the way most people in Taipei believe. It rests on Chinese calculation. Taiwan is safe right now not primarily because America will defend it, but because China has decided the cost of taking it still exceeds the benefit. Those are different things, with different implications. If that calculation shifts, if China's economy deteriorates badly enough that internal pressure demands a nationalist victory, or if decoupling accelerates to the point where the economic cost of invasion shrinks, then American commitments become the only thing standing between Taiwan and a very different situation. And we just watched, in real time, what happens when American commitments meet real economic pressure. The Islamabad Memorandum. America choosing its economy over its allies' war aims. A revealed preference, not a stated one. Every defense minister in Taipei has read that outcome. So has every strategist in Beijing. Why the equilibrium is more fragile than it looks. Anyone telling you the Taiwan Strait is stable is technically correct and missing the point. It is stable the way a dam is stable, until pressure exceeds structure. Three forces are building that pressure at once. China's domestic economy. When growth slows and the social contract frays, authoritarian governments reach for nationalist distractions. Not always, but often enough to take seriously. The semiconductor race. Every year the world builds alternative supply chains. It reduces Taiwan's strategic value as a deterrent. The window in which Taiwan's economic centrality protects it is finite. An American political will, which, as recently demonstrated, has limits lower than most allies believed. I know the counter-argument. Military deterrence is real. The costs of invasion are still prohibitive. China will not risk a war with America no matter what. That is probably right today, but deterrence is not a fixed condition. It is a calculation that gets remade constantly by decision makers under changing pressures. And the foundation of that calculation just showed a crack. The framework Taiwan is currently safe because of converging factors: Chinese caution, economic interdependence, and military deterrence. All three of those are under slow, quiet pressure. And the main lesson of the past several months is that when economic pain meets political pressure, great powers choose themselves. Athens, Rome, every empire that ever made a promise to a smaller partner. The pattern holds. The question Taiwan should be asking, along with every American ally in the Pacific, is not whether America is committed today. It is. The question is what happens to that commitment the day a real conflict starts moving oil prices, crashing markets, and landing on the Senate floor. We just ran that experiment. We saw the answer. This is not a prediction or a timeline. Things can go many directions from here. But the structure does not lie, and right now it is telling a quiet, important story that most of the mainstream conversation is not willing to say plainly. Push back on it. Test it against what you observe. That is the only way any of us actually understand what is going on.